Right now, while your cat is curled up in that sunny spot on the couch, something is quietly ticking. It's not loud, it's not painful, it won't show up on any thermometer or in any obvious way you'd notice on a Tuesday afternoon. But make no mistake, a clock is running. And the strange truth about cats is that their bodies are built to hide the very hands of that clock from you. Here's what most owners don't realize. Cats sleep an average of 12 to 16 hours a day. Some sleep even more. And because that's considered normal, we've stopped asking the more important question. Not how much your cat sleeps, but how your cat sleeps. Where, when, how deeply, and whether the pattern is drifting somewhere it shouldn't. Because sleep in cats isn't just rest, it's a mirror. A quiet reflection of everything happening inside their body, their brain, and their emotional world. And that mirror can start to fog over so slowly, so gradually, that by the time you finally notice something is off, weeks or months of small warning signs have already passed you by. Today, we're going to walk through what's really happening when your cat sleeps too much. Not to scare you, not to send you rushing to the vet in a panic, but to give you a stage-by-stage map of what unfolds inside a cat when their sleep starts to shift. Because there are 4 stages, and each one hides in plain sight. Each one has a window where you can step in, gently, calmly, and change the outcome entirely. The good news is this. If you catch the clock early, the fix is almost embarrassingly simple. But if the clock runs long enough, uninterrupted, what starts as "my cat just really loves napping" can quietly become something much bigger, something expensive, something painful, something that could have been avoided with one small observation this week. So let's start where every ticking clock starts. Right now, today, this very moment. Because stage 1 is happening in more homes than most people realize, and it's almost invisible unless you know exactly what to look for. Picture your cat right now. Where are they sleeping? Is it the same spot as last month? The same posture? The same time of day? Stage 1 begins with something so small it barely registers. Your cat starts sleeping in slightly different places. Maybe they used to greet you at the door, but lately they stayed curled up. Maybe they used to nap on the windowsill watching birds, but now they've moved to the back of a closet. Maybe they still sleep the same number of hours, but the hours have shifted. They're up when you're asleep. They're asleep when you used to see them playing. This is the whisper stage, and 90% of owners miss it completely. Here's why. Cats are what biologists call crepuscular. They're naturally most active at dawn and dusk, so a little extra midday sleeping is expected. A little extra winter sleeping is expected too, because shorter daylight hours signal their brain to conserve energy. If your cat sleeps an extra hour in December compared to July, that's biology doing its job. But stage 1 isn't about the extra hour. It's about the quiet drift, the subtle change in where and how, not just how long. Your cat might start choosing warmer spots more often, not because the house got colder, but because their body is asking for a little more heat. They might sleep with their paws tucked tight underneath them instead of stretched out. They might not stretch fully when they wake up, opting for a small, half-hearted arch instead of the big, luxurious yoga pose you're used to. At this stage, nothing hurts. Your cat isn't sick. There's no infection, no injury, no crisis. What's happening is more like a whisper from their body saying, something is beginning to change. Maybe it's their weight. Maybe it's a slight stiffness in a joint. Maybe it's the beginning of a slower thyroid. Maybe it's a little bit of stress from a new smell in the house, a new schedule, a new pet, a new noise outside. Or maybe, and this is important, it's just boredom. Because here's a truth that surprises a lot of owners. A bored cat sleeps more. Not because they're tired, but because there's nothing else to do. Sleep becomes the default setting when the environment stops offering enough interesting choices. And boredom, if it stays long enough, can quietly slide into something heavier. Stage 1 is your friend. It's the easiest window to act in. And the action isn't dramatic. You don't need a vet visit. You don't need supplements. You don't need to change anything major. You just need to notice. Sit down for 5 minutes today and ask yourself these 3 things. Where does my cat sleep most often now? And is it the same as 3 months ago? How does my cat move when they first wake up? And when's the last time I saw my cat actively hunting, whether it was a toy, a shadow, or a bug on the wall? If you can't answer clearly, that's not a failure. That's just the whisper being quiet. Now you're listening, which means you've already stopped stage 1 from progressing without your knowledge. Fast forward 4 to 6 weeks. The whisper hasn't been answered, so it gets a little louder. At stage 2, the sleep pattern has locked in. What used to be a drift is now the new normal. Your cat is sleeping a little longer than they used to, maybe an extra hour or 2 a day. Their preferred spots have shifted permanently. They're less interested in the toys that used to send them into that wild-eyed sprint around the living room. When you dangle the feather wand, they watch. They might swat once. Then they lie back down. This is the stage where owners start to notice, but usually explain it away. She's getting older. He's just lazy. She's always been a chill cat. It's winter. All of these might be partly true, and that's exactly why stage 2 is so tricky. It hides behind reasonable explanations. But something is happening underneath. Let's decode what could be going on. If the extra sleep is paired with a slightly rounder belly, we might be looking at the beginning of weight gain. And weight gain in cats isn't just cosmetic. Even 1 extra pound on a 10-pound cat is like a person carrying an extra 15 pounds. Their joints work harder. Their heart works harder. Their movement gets slower. And slower movement means more sleep, which means less activity, which means more weight. The clock starts to feed itself. If the extra sleep is paired with a slightly grumpier attitude, especially around being touched in certain spots, we might be looking at early joint discomfort. Cats are famously stoic. They don't limp the way dogs do. They don't whine. Instead, they just move less. They jump less. They sleep in places that are easier to get into, closer to the ground, avoiding the high shelves and window perches they used to love. If the extra sleep comes with increased thirst or a subtle change in appetite, we might be looking at the earliest signals of something metabolic. Nothing dramatic yet. Nothing a lab test would necessarily flag on a routine visit. But the body is starting to work differently. And if the extra sleep comes with more hiding, more time alone, less interaction, less purring, we might be looking at emotional weight. Stress, low-grade anxiety, a cat who has decided the world outside their sleeping spot isn't as inviting as it used to be. Here's the reframe most owners need at stage 2. Sleep isn't the problem. Sleep is the messenger. Trying to fix the sleep by waking your cat up more or forcing playtime rarely works because you're treating a symptom instead of the source. What works is gentle investigation. Try offering a new type of enrichment. A puzzle feeder that makes them work slightly for a meal. A window perch with a bird feeder placed outside. A 10-minute play session at the same time every evening, using a toy that mimics prey rather than something that lights up like a nightclub. Watch what happens over the following week. If the extra sleep starts to lift, if you see a spark of interest returning, if they start moving to different rooms again, you've caught a boredom or stress issue at stage 2, and you've solved it with almost no effort. That's a beautiful thing. But if you offer these adjustments and the sleep stays heavy, if your cat looks at the new toy and just closes their eyes again, if the pattern doesn't shift within 7 to 10 days, then something more physical is likely underneath. And that's your cue, calmly and without alarm, to plan a check-in with your vet before stage 3 arrives. Now let's jump forward another 2 to 3 months. If the pattern hasn't been addressed, we're in stage 3. And this is where the sleep isn't just sleep anymore. It's tangled up with other visible signs that owners can no longer talk themselves out of noticing. At stage 3, your cat's coat might start to look a little different, slightly less shiny, maybe some small mats appearing behind the ears or along the back in spots they use to groom easily. This isn't your cat being dirty, it's your cat being tired. Grooming takes energy and flexibility. A cat who is sleeping more, or a cat whose joints have gotten a little stiffer, or a cat whose body is working through something metabolic, simply doesn't have the same grooming budget they used to. You might notice weight changes have become obvious, either heavier, or in some cases, quietly lighter. Weight loss in an older cat who's sleeping more is especially worth paying attention to, because in cats, losing weight while still eating normally is often more significant than gaining it. You might notice the litter box tells a story, more visits, or fewer. Clumps that are unusually large or unusually small. Changes in what you're scooping. Cats are creatures of pattern, and the litter box is one of the clearest pattern signals they give us. You might notice they've stopped jumping onto certain surfaces entirely. The kitchen counter that used to be a battleground is now off limits by their choice. The top of the bookshelf where they used to survey the kingdom hasn't been visited in weeks. They take a different route to their food bowl, one with fewer leaps and more stairs. And through it all, they sleep, deeply, long stretches, in spots that are warmer, softer, quieter. If you sit near them and gently rest your hand on their side, you might notice their breathing is slower, their body feels a little different, their response to your touch might be a little muted compared to the sharp, alert cat you knew a year ago. Here's the truth about stage 3. It's still reversible. Almost everything at stage 3 can be improved, managed, or, in many cases, resolved completely if it's addressed. But at this stage, you're not going to fix it with a puzzle feeder alone. You need a partner, a veterinarian who can run the simple tests that reveal what the sleep has been trying to tell you all along. The most common stage 3 discoveries in cats include the beginning of kidney changes, thyroid shifts, dental disease that's been quietly making eating uncomfortable, arthritis that's been growing invisibly in the background, and diabetes, which is far more common in cats than most owners realize, especially in indoor cats over the age of 7. None of these are death sentences. Every one of them caught at stage 3 has a clear pathway to management. Some are handled with a simple diet adjustment, some with a daily pill, some with a small change to their environment. What matters is that you catch them here, not later. At stage 3, the effort required is bigger than at stage 2. You're going to spend a little money. You're going to have a slightly harder week as you adjust to a new routine. But you're still miles away from crisis. You're still driving the car. You still have the wheel. The owners who catch it here are the ones who look back a year later and say, "I'm so glad I paid attention when I did." Now, let's imagine what happens if the clock keeps running, all the way to stage 4. Stage 4 is when the sleeping cat becomes the emergency cat. And here's the difficult part. It often looks the same on the outside. They're still sleeping, still curled up in their favorite spot, still purring when you pet them. But something has changed underneath that can't be ignored any longer. At stage 4, you might come home and find your cat hasn't moved from the same spot all day. Their food bowl untouched, their water bowl untouched, their litter box unused or used in ways that are alarming. They might feel unusually warm or unusually cool when you rest your hand on them. They might not lift their head when you say their name. Their eyes might have that dull, distant quality that means the body is fighting something bigger than the cat can hide anymore. This is the stage where the whisper from stage 1 has become a shout. The body can no longer mask what's happening. What might have been an early kidney change is now advanced kidney disease. What might have been early diabetes is now a diabetic emergency. What might have been mild dental disease is now a painful infection they can no longer eat around. What might have been simple stress or boredom is now a cat who has stopped engaging with the world entirely. Stage 4 is expensive, not just financially, though yes, the vet bills at this stage can be significant, but expensive emotionally too, because you'll spend nights wondering what you missed. You'll replay the small moments. You'll remember the time you noticed they weren't jumping on the bed anymore and you told yourself they were just getting older and you moved on with your day. I'm telling you this not to make you feel guilty, because guilt doesn't help your cat. Guilt looks backward. What helps your cat is looking forward. Starting right now, every single owner has moments they wish they'd caught earlier. That's part of loving an animal who can't speak your language. What matters is what you do the moment the whisper reaches you. And here's the most important thing to understand about stage 4. It is almost always the end result of a story that had many chapters where it could have taken a different turn. Stage 4 is rarely a bolt from the blue. It's the loud final act of a quiet play that started weeks or months earlier, which is why we're going to hit pause on that story right now, because you have all the information you need to turn the clock back, not to stage 0, but to a place where your cat's sleep is a signal you understand, a pattern you watch, and a mirror you know how to read. So let's talk about the reset. What do you do this week, starting today, to stop the clock and give your cat the best possible next chapter? First, become a sleep observer, not obsessively, not in a way that turns your home into a science lab. Just pay quiet attention. Notice where your cat sleeps most days. Notice how they wake up. Notice their first movements. Notice which surfaces they've stopped visiting and which they've claimed as new favorites. You don't need a spreadsheet. You just need to know your cat's normal well enough that a shift feels loud when it happens. Second, offer one small piece of enrichment every single day. It doesn't have to be complicated. A cardboard box on the floor, a paper bag with the handles removed, a pinch of dry food scattered on a snuffle mat instead of poured into a bowl, a 5-minute play session with a feather wand at the same time each evening. Cats aren't looking for spectacle. They're looking for texture, choice, and small wins. A cat with just a little more mental engagement each day sleeps for the right reasons, not the wrong ones. Third, do a monthly hands-on check. Once a month, when your cat is in a mellow mood, gently run your hands over their body. From the top of the head, down the neck, along the shoulders, over the ribs, along the spine, over the hips, down each leg. Feel for anything that seems different from last month. A new lump, a spot where they flinch, a patch of fur that feels different, a little softness where there used to be firmness, or the other way around. You're not diagnosing anything. You're just gathering information. Your vet will love you for it at your next visit, because you'll be able to say, this spot right here, this changed 6 weeks ago. Fourth, keep an eye on the 4 Bs: bowl, box, behavior, and body. Bowl means what and how much they're eating and drinking. Box means what's happening in the litter box. Behavior means how they're moving, hiding, playing, greeting. Body means the physical check we just talked about. If any 2 of the 4 Bs shift at the same time, that's your signal to book a vet visit, not because something is definitely wrong, because a check now is worth 10 checks later. Fifth, and this one might surprise you, be gentle with yourself. Being a good cat owner isn't about being perfect. It isn't about noticing every whisper the moment it happens. It's about staying curious. It's about not assuming your cat is fine just because they seem fine. It's about listening to the quiet parts of their behavior as carefully as you'd listen to the loud parts. Cats don't tell us when something is wrong. They show us in tiny, easy-to-miss ways that hide inside their sleep, their posture, their preferences, their patterns. The owner who watches those patterns is the owner whose cat gets to grow old gracefully, comfortably, and with fewer surprises along the way. Your cat is sleeping right now. That's not a problem. That's just a cat being a cat. But somewhere in that sleep is a story about how they feel, how they're moving through the world, and how their body is doing its quiet daily work. When you learn to read that story, you become something bigger than just a caring owner. You become a partner in your cat's health, a translator of the language they can't quite speak. And here's the most beautiful part of everything we just walked through. The clock is not your enemy. The clock is a gift. Because it means there's time to notice, time to adjust, time to reset, time to give your cat many, many more of those long, sun-warmed, deeply peaceful naps that are exactly what they were meant to enjoy. So here's my question for you before you go. When you looked at your cat today, what did their sleep tell you? Was it the peaceful kind, or was it the kind with a whisper in it? Take a moment in the comments and share what you noticed, because the more we compare notes as owners, the sharper all of us become at reading our cats. And if this walkthrough helped you see your cat's naps in a new light, consider subscribing. Not because I want the number, but because the next video is going to break down the 5 specific spots cats choose to sleep in when something is starting to shift, and you'll want that map in your back pocket before stage 1 ever whispers in your home. Stay curious, stay gentle, and keep watching the quiet moments. Your cat is telling you everything if you know how to listen.